to order. Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
President Adair.
Present.
Ms. Beckerly.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
I'm here.
Mr. Cole.
Present.
Dr. Pierce.
Present.
Mr. Ragland.
He's excused this evening.
Thank you. And Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you so much. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance from one of our student ambassadors, Alicia Stallings, who's an 11th grader at Afrocentric Early College. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to the meeting.
Hello.
It's so great to see you. Go ahead and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and especially for joining us on a snow day. All right, board members, in front of you, you have your agendas. We have no board recognition. We do have one public comment. We have a report from our superintendent and internal auditor this evening. No report expected from our treasurer. We do have one item in board matters, and then of course our consent agenda. We will have board announcements, and we will have a short executive session this evening, followed by adjournment. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns, additions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. Before we head into our public comment, I just wanted to make two very quick announcements, recognitions really. The first, as we all know, it's February, so it is Black History Month. And so we know that that is going on, and there'll be different events I know different schools have, so be on the lookout to our social media to participate in those events. Also, we want to recognize February 1st through 5th as National School Counseling Week. So thank you to our school counselors. The theme for this week is school counselors, all in for all students. And so we want to really thank and highlight all of our school counselors who they've been working so hard. I personally want to thank my own school counselor who has, talked with my daughter and, helped her through some of this COVID and remote learning. It was a great asset to us. So thank you, school counselors. So I want to recognize you. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into our board public comments. So our board liaison will join us with our first caller, who is Miss Ella Coleman. She's going to be asking about a follow-up with the Black History curriculum in CCS. The action requested is to move forward to accept Black History curriculum and to review her presentation. So each caller has 4 minutes to address the board. Board Liaison Nichols, do you have the caller?
Yep, the speaker's on the line.
Hello, Ms. Coleman. Welcome to the board meeting. You have 4 minutes to address the board this evening. You may begin.
Thank you very much. And I want to wish the board, the superintendent and the board, a very enlightening Black History Month as we celebrate. And that is exactly why I am on the line, is just to follow up. I did attend the board meetings back earlier it was actually probably in the fall part of last year, summer and fall part of last year, and I brought a presentation to implement Black history into the curriculum of CCS, and I actually presented 2 proposals, and at that time there were questions and so forth. All of them I probably could not answer. I do have a tentative budget that I've put together, and I'm going to email that to you all. But I'll just basically email to you. I won't even say all of that on here, so I will email that to you. I wanted to connect again so that you would know that and that I'm very serious about what we're trying to do. Also, in that interim time, I have been in touch with the curriculum department. They did contact me, and we did do some brainstorming and want to move forward with it. We talked about summer sessions for teacher training in the area of Black history and culture. And so that's where we stand right now. I have, been working on that, and I have put together a team of trainers that are qualified and certified to bring forth that training in the summer. I realized that we're in a very critical time, so I knew that even the superintendent was grappling with, just even how to handle this whole COVID situation. So I've been in prayer for that. And I do really appreciate the opportunity to try to make our school district, to bring it up as far as, in where we are as far as achievement. And because as I looked on your website, I did, see where, our goal is always to produce and to prepare the students to be able to go out into society. And I really believe that the Black history proposals and also even this budget, even though it's just an estimate, will help us to go in the right direction. So I am hopeful for that. I will take any of your feedback right now.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ms. Coleman, for that update and letting us know where this is. And thank you for continuing to work with the district. Board members, do you have clarifying questions or comments from Ms. Coleman? Dr. Pierce.
Ms. Coleman, again, I echo President Adair's comments. Thank you for coming and giving not just us, but the public this update. It's a great pleasure when the public knows that the work is still continuing. And so we appreciate that. My question for you is there anything that we as a board can do to help you further advance the work that you are doing currently with the administration? Is there anything that we can do to forge relationships within the community, to forge relationships with our LECs in the interim, so you are able to, in some respects, start now? We know that Black history happens year round and not just this month. So what can we do to leverage our resources to help you advance student learning and cultural competency throughout our district and community?
Well, one of the things I think that we can do is together, because I don't claim to know it all, we all are trying to make everything better, is to be able to actually maybe, get on some kind of call or communication, or I know we're not meeting much now face to face, but to get on a call or something where we can kind of, get a working plan for implementing this proposal that I put before you. And so I see us, I don't know if you all even know me or not, maybe I think some of you do and some of you don't, but I'd like to just maybe get a chance to meet you at some point here in the next month or so, or even during the Black History Month, where we can you can get to know more about me, and you can get to know more about the details of what we can do, and also to help me to understand more of, what you all are willing to do to make this happen, because I'm just not really clear on a lot of things. And of course, you can't be just coming together on a public forum, but it takes a lot of nuts and bolts. I want to also add that I did not forget, I do have a couple of articles that I'm including in this package, and you'll have time to, in your spare time, to read those, and also to just look at the budget and put in mind, when you read the budget, that it's mostly estimated, because a lot of things have to go through the curriculum, a lot of things have to be approved by the board. I realize there are standards there. You have to look at everything that is going to go into a curriculum. I did follow the audit of the curriculum, so I'm kind of aware, that everything should kind of be succinct, should be in harmony with, other things that you're doing. So I've been trying to keep that in mind. I do have a list of books that will follow this budget that I will forward also. I'm putting together, I'm trying to comprehensively put together what I would think would be, good materials, and then work with you all to make sure that that's what happens, and that we really have a refined Black history course within there. I did look at the courses that were offered in social studies. I did see one course in African American history, but it didn't have any other information there. So just for me to even know what, exactly what that is, and then being able to move forward with the new what we're going to infuse into the curriculum. So I do appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again so much. I appreciate you sharing all of that information and letting us know where we can plug in and help.
Anyone else have any clarifying questions for Ms. Coleman? Perhaps Dr. Pierce, as lead of the academic committee, this might be something that the committee would like to take up after the curriculum team has looked at it. Maybe Ms. Coleman might be interested in joining that committee at some point. Ensuring culturally competent curriculum is something that we as a board are committed to, and we certainly need partners to help us. And, we certainly have a wonderful academic department that leads that effort, but it's always good to hear from outside perspectives as well. So thank you, Ms. Coleman, for being a very active and engaged community member and ensuring that, our students are getting the best education possible. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will now move on to the superintendent's reports. Madam Superintendent, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Board President. So tonight we have two presentations for you. First, we'll please welcome our guests from the Ohio State University College of Public Health. We first have Ms. Ann Trend and Dr. Aziz Haider to tell us more about the COVID-19 analytics and targeted surveillance, or the CATS dashboard that will launch for Columbus City Schools this month. So I will turn it over first to our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. John Stanford, who will introduce our presenters and tell you just a little bit about what we have been doing with this partnership and why we wanted to enter in this partnership with Ohio State University. So Dr. Stanford.
Thank you, Superintendent Dixon. Before I introduce our two guests, I'd like to say that Dr. Dixon really was excited about the CATS project when she became aware of it, and directed myself and others to meet with the CATS team and to get a better understanding of the CATS program and how it might be helpful to the district as we were trying to make decisions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so after the first initial meeting with Ms. Trend and Dr. Haider, it became quite evident why the superintendent was excited about the project. And so we reported back to the superintendent our thoughts as a team based on our meeting with them. And she gave us the green light to move forward with bringing the project to Columbus City Schools. In a nutshell, and I know the two of them will do a better job of explaining it than I could, but in a nutshell, the system will allow us to have better data information at our fingertips that we will monitor on a regular basis that will help us make decisions moving forward about how we deal with the pandemic and the strategies that we use to help our staff and our students as best we can. And so with that, as the superintendent indicated, we have Dr. Ayez Haider with us this evening. He is a core faculty assistant professor of translational data analysis at the College of Public Health. He says that public health is his life. Dr. Haider began his career as a postdoctoral researcher of environmental epidemiology at Yale University. He then became a research associate of health services research at the University of Toronto. He joined the Ohio State University's College of Public Health in 2015 as an assistant professor. His current research priorities are birth outcomes and infant mortality, opioid epidemic, and food insecurity. He says that a novel theme of his research is developing strategies for community-centered modeling, where models are co-created, personalized, and relevant to the community needs and generalizable to other communities. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, and a PhD in biology from McGill University. Joining Dr. Haider is Ms. Ann Tren. She is the center's senior program manager at the Ohio State University. And the center is the Center for Health Outcomes and Policy Evaluation Studies in the College of Public Health at the Ohio State University. Ms. Tren has almost 2 decades of experience in public practice and research in different settings, including local and tribal governments, non-public, and universities. Her work has focused on prevention, equity, and the social indicators of health. Before taking her position at the college, she served as the maternal health epidemiologist and program specialist for Columbus Public Health. During her 7 years with the city, she performed outbreak investigations and developed and led community coalitions to work with diverse partners to reduce Franklin County's infant mortality rate. From 2008 to 2010, she lived on a reservation and worked with tribes in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan as a chronic disease epidemiologist. She went to school in San Diego and received a BS in microbiology at the University of California, San Diego, and an MPH in epidemiology at the San Diego State University Graduate School of Public Health. As you can tell, both of them have extensive backgrounds in public health, and I will now turn it over to Ms. Tren and Dr. Haider for the presentation.
Thank you so much. We're very happy to be here to talk about the project that we've been working on with everyone. And I'm sorry I was not able to bring the sunshine from San Diego. I haven't been there in a while, so it doesn't pay attention to me anymore.
Thanks for the reminder.
I will start with some slides, and then if we have time, Dr. Haider will do a demo. But we really want to be able to focus on any questions that you might have for us. So we can send out additional information if you'd like after. So our system is the COVID Analytics and Targeted Surveillance System for Schools, which we call CAS to make it seem less intimidating, because the word surveillance is intimidating. We've been working since last July with these various partners: Franklin County Public Health, Columbus Public Health, Resolve to Save Lives, which is a national nonprofit, Educational Service Center of Central Ohio, and then school districts throughout Central Ohio. So today I will give a brief system overview. I will then share some screenshots of data. Some of it is real, some of it is from an unnamed district, not Columbus. Talk about how to move the data to action to protect students and staff, and then discuss some next steps that we have to be ready to go into live surveillance as students go back to school. So our system is a syndromic surveillance system. It uses different sources of data and indicators that we believe will help us predict an outbreak in a school building or a district attendance area. And what we're focused on is different but connected to what public health is doing. So we try to prevent clusters of COVID or outbreaks of COVID. And then when cases are confirmed or identified, public health is the authority that will do investigation and help with case management. So those two things are related, but they are separate from each other. The primary sources of data for our surveillance system come from the Ohio Disease Reporting System, which we pull live. And then the rest of the school-based indicators, which are student absences, student nurse visits for influenza-like or COVID-like illness, and then staff absences due to illness, all that is coming from your district directly. Here are figures from the secure dashboard. So we have two primary data products. One is a secure dashboard where people need a password and an account to log in to see. And then the other is public facing, the latter being something that we provide to continue to inform community members and stakeholders about what's happening with the pandemic. So this comes from the secure dashboard. You can see that there are different geographic levels of data. We start with the state of Ohio as a whole, and then we can zoom into different counties. Within counties, we can zoom into different school district attendance boundaries, and then within those boundaries, we can also see different census tracts. So this type of information helps us answer the question, what do case rates look like in Ohio, in the county, and around our district? Another helpful visualization is this one here. This is the epidemic curve for different school districts. And we have Franklin County and Ohio as references. You can also compare yourself to other districts. So Columbus is in this light brown line. So we know that not everyone is wanting to look at a bunch of different indicators at one time. And honestly, all of that can be really overwhelming and your brain doesn't really know what to make of it. So this is a summary data table of the primary indicators. And the zeros here are there because we don't have live data from Columbus yet, given that you're only back in school for a few days. So this is a quick summary of all of the indicators, and it will give you a snapshot of what's happening in the district. You can see if certain thresholds are exceeded or not exceeded. And those thresholds are set by Dr. Hyder and I and our programmers, as well as epidemiologists from the health departments and your staff. So that is a conversation that we still need to have. And we make sure that the thresholds are appropriate for your equity concerns, as well as your capacity when it comes to staff and other considerations. This is actually real data for the Columbus City School District attendance boundary, and it has counts of COVID cases for every adult and child living within your district attendance boundary by date. So this is something that, you know, is surpassing the threshold. So you can see here, the red dots represent data that are above a predetermined threshold, which is this dashed line. And this threshold is set based on the expected number of cases for the geography. And it uses data from March when the pandemic was relatively under control in Central Ohio. Now, I'd like to note that this is not Columbus City school data, these next few slides. This is an example of a similar type of chart, and it has daily nurse visits for influenza-like or COVID-like symptoms, and it's represented as a rate per 1,000 students. This indicator for this school is good because it's not surpassing the threshold, which is this dashed line up here. So again, this is an example of student absences. It's presented similarly. This one is surpassing a threshold. And then finally, staff absences due to illness. This one is below a threshold. So what are thresholds used for? When we first began this project with Hilliard, we tied some of the data to specific learning modalities, and we quickly learned that that was not appropriate because it didn't take into consideration some of the community context. So data really comes to life when community members and different stakeholders give us more information about what's happening. So now we use the thresholds as a guideline for data interpretation and something that informs the necessity for a deeper data dive or data review. So after the thresholds are surpassed, multiple of them for a few days or even a couple weeks, that will trigger a data review team meeting with public health and Columbus City Schools. And then we can all work together to understand the data better and support each other in making data-informed decisions. So that's what I'm sorry, I just went over that and got ahead of myself. But basically, our goal is to provide a snapshot for you with all of those indicators. And then since the system is tracking those thresholds when they are surpassed, you will get an alert from me. And then if something is concerning, we can get together with the larger team and review the information and then make decisions moving forward. So OSU is here to support any additional analyses that need to happen, as well as helping to craft any public health messaging that your communications office wants to put out that is data informed. So right now, the system is live. We are just waiting to get a couple weeks of data. And then once those data stabilize, the surveillance team that Dr. Stanford has helped us set up will begin active monitoring of the dashboard. And then after that, we will follow the data review guidelines with Columbus Public Health and then start live surveillance. So this is a summary timeline of what we are hoping to be able to do in the next couple weeks. And again, we do the 2 weeks of waiting with every district, and that's just so the data can stabilize and we can have a better understanding of what's happening. So we hope to begin active surveillance with your surveillance team starting Monday, February 15th. So now Dr. Hyder and I can take questions. And if there's still time after questions, we can show you the secure dashboard, and Dr. Hyder has a mock-up of the public-facing dashboard.
Board members, do you have questions? Board Member Beckerly.
Thank you very much for this presentation. And it seems to me like in a general sense, is this kind of going to function as an early warning indicator? Is that kind of the idea behind it?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And the science behind it is based on influenza surveillance that the US and other countries have done for a really long time.
And so the first thing quick question, this is just sort of a geeky question, but the epi curve, that's what we call it now. I don't know. When you showed it for Columbus, was that just doing our zip codes or our boundaries actually? Oh, we got to unmute.
Yeah, sorry. And Dr. Hyder can tell you more about this, but we get the data from the Ohio Disease Reporting System, and every case has an address, and every address has a latitude and longitude. So we map those lat-longs onto a map of your district boundary. So we call every case that lands in that boundary a Columbus City School attendance zone case. And those cases don't include people who live in nursing homes or people who are.
It does or does not include them?
It doesn't. We take those cases out.
No, that's nice because I've been, sort of extrapolating from Columbus Public Health's data about, roughly where our districts are and roughly what zip codes. So it's nice to have that sort of a clean curve.
Yes, and we had challenges figuring out how to present building specific data for you. But because you're an open enrollment district, that wasn't something we were able to do. So instead, we are going to ask you to monitor what's happening in each of the census tracts based on where they fall within your district boundary.
And by census tract, you mean zip code?
No, census tracts are smaller geographic units than zip codes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Member Brown?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and thanks for the work that you're doing. Just have a few questions. I appreciate this approach and I think it's going to be helpful for us. But first question, I guess, is all of this is premised upon your getting reliable or accurate data from us and from the other school districts who are participating. How do you know that the data is accurate? Have you been able to do any testing to determine that?
Yeah, I can maybe speak a little bit to that. So of the various data sources we're getting, the COVID-19 case data that's used to calculate the epi curve for City of Columbus is coming from the Ohio Department of Health, where they check that, they double check it, they triple check it. Columbus Public Health enters that data. And so, we're pretty confident about those data. Then the other three pieces of information are coming from the staff absence, the staff absence reporting system, SEMS, I believe it's called in Columbus City Schools. And then the Infinite Campus for the student absence data. And then I believe you use Infinite Campus also for your the health visit data for the students. So we've been working with the lead people at CCF for each of those data sets since I would say early December, I would say, to understand that data, to make sure we understand the variables, understand the lags, the reporting lags, how quickly things change up and down, to make sure that when we ingest it and when we average it and look at a moving average, we're able to account for some of those biases. The other thing is that there's no perfect indicator for an outbreak, and CATS is really about integrating different signals from different data that have their own biases. But collectively, when multiple indicators are, throwing up alarms, that's when you can be even more confident that it's time for action, or it's time for a deeper dive into the data to figure out exactly what's going on and then respond. This is a bit more detailed than maybe is needed, but the statistical methods that we're using for surveillance themselves also account for bias in the signal. So it uses a moving average, but then it also accounts for differences between one year over another year. And we've used historical data from Columbus City Schools to look at some of the thresholds as well. So we've done a number of those things to make sure that, because it matters. I mean, this is really important stuff, and the decisions based on it are affect so many children, so many families, that it's important for us to get it right.
Do you have yet enough data in the past where you've measured, what you're predicting against the reality of what happens, for that to factor into your thoughts that this is reliable? I don't know
We've
how much
never had.
past data that you've
Sure.
looked at.
Yeah, so in terms of COVID case data, it's a pandemic, so we have no idea what the past, we're comparing it against. Myself and others, we have been part of a surveillance team that has been assisting the Ohio Department of Health since April. So we've been advising the state and the local health departments on different surveillance strategies since then. So we've taken some of that knowledge about how to set pass thresholds and applied it for schools. We have used the historical data on student absences and staff absences to better understand. But again, that's just one number because this year, everything has changed so much that it's a useful marker to tell us that we're in the ballpark, but we're also going to rely on the surveillance, on the data review team that Dr. Stanford has put together because they understand the day-to-day nuances, the blips, the circumstances in that data. So that's our strategy.
Okay, just a couple more. First, or next, the indicators that you've selected were selected based upon your experience with influenza. Is that what I understand? But
yeah,
and
yeah.
You
can answer.
And I guess the other part of that is are there good reasons to believe that the influenza indicators correspond to the COVID-19 indicators?
Yeah, so there are differences in how they present, but we use a specific list of symptoms to make sure that for the nurse visit data that we are capturing things that do look like COVID and or flu if they're confused. And like Dr. Hyder was saying, this is like the first time that anyone is dealing with this. So we're using the influenza information as a foundation for how to move forward. And our belief is any data is better than no data. So that's why we moved away from connecting the data to set learning modalities, which we did do in the beginning with Hilliard. We said, if these things look like this, you're in remote. And that, because the pandemic was changing so quickly, some of what we thought was normal and safe quickly became not normal. So I remember a day last year when I thought a case rate higher than 100 was like very alarming. And now like 700 looks good. So the system has needed to adapt to what we get used to as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing
yes.
One
Please
thing
go
just
ahead.
to add is that, just one thing to add is that, like Anne said, this is a pandemic, and so we have some confidence that school absenteeism in the literature that's been used for flu surveillance in schools, is a useful measure. The other thing we've done is that we've actually been working with several school districts to help them code their data better. So when a student comes in with certain absences for reasons, we've asked them to code, and they've been very willing because there's nothing out there, right? In August, when we started this, there was no guidance from ODH or ODE on how to do this, right? There was nothing from the CDC back then either. So now there have been some guidance, but when we were working with this, we had to come up with some specific codes that could be used, and now several districts are using them. So that gives us an additional confidence that, as we work with Dr. Klein and Dr. King and others within the Columbus City School District, they're going to be using those codes, and we're going to get better quality information.
Okay. And finally, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the, what's going to be available online for us to see the data, and even more important,
Right.
the interpretation of the data. Is that going to appear online with the raw data, or is it something we're going to have to figure out some other way?
So we've approached that that issue in a number of different ways. The first thing we're doing is if we have time, we can show you what the mock-up will look like for the public-facing dashboard, and we're hoping that you'll give us some feedback, whether now or later, that we can incorporate before it goes live. The other thing is that we've set up a data review team and a surveillance team consisting of multiple perspectives within CCS who are going to be able to talk about the interpretation of those different data. And those teams include Columbus Public Health epidemiologists, along with myself and from the CATS team. So they're going to be doing that interpretation together with us, like I said, of the multiple indicators simultaneously. And we also have an explainer video that we've created for parents that they can view it to get a better understanding of what the different lines, the numbers, the axes mean in the public-facing dashboard. And so, and then the last thing we're doing is that we're also providing translation in the 5 languages that CCS offers on its website for the public-facing dashboard as well, because that is equity is a core public health value. And so we're going to have that on day one, it's not an afterthought for us at all.
Great. I appreciate all of that. I'm a fan of evidence-based decisions, and this certainly will provide us some good data to rely on instead of just guessing. And I'm also hopeful, knowing what the public can do with numbers, with evidence, with all of this kind of data, and get it wrong. I'm hopeful that we'll have good interpretation there for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Up next is Vice President Reyes.
Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting that we're utilizing this data set. And Board Member Brown asked several of the questions. Actually, you answered a lot of my questions in your explanations of his questions. But when you talked about data sets, zip codes and addresses, well, as we know, some of our staff may live outside of our district outline. So how will we be attributing their entry of COVID when they're outside our district?
I can cover that. So we're hoping, in the map that we have of Franklin County, there are census tracts of areas around the county as well. So that can contribute to our understanding of what's happening in different neighborhoods that your staff might be coming from. And then to make up for that lack of information for staff who don't live within the city boundaries, we're hoping that the absences indicator for illness can give us that early warning.
And when you get those indicators, are we comparing our school data with the general data that's reported to the public, that the governor uses and some of the other officials use to say this is going on in the, Franklin County? Will that be in comparison when we're looking at that data?
Yeah, so the dashboard itself doesn't make any direct comparisons, but we host bi-weekly surveillance calls that every district that is participating in CATS can drop into. They are Fridays at 2 p.m. And that's where we really ask questions about what's happening within the county and within Ohio in general. So we talk about positivity rate, we talk about different events that might affect rates going up. So, and public health is there too. So that's where we hope we can get into some of those issues.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Reyes. Next, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate it. I have a number of questions that kind of get at how the system will operate. So my first questions relate to data and data retention. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for our administration, but have you determined the minimum amount of time that is needed to retain the data that you're collecting? Is there a set deletion schedule for that data? So in essence, what are the legal requirements and ramifications that will come with this data collection?
Sure. I'll start off by saying that this project has a number of legal agreements that govern what's done with the data, where it's stored, how securely it's stored, what data elements are transferred. So one is that there is an OSU IRB approval that was given for this project. We also have a signed data use agreement between Ohio State University and Columbus Public Health, Ohio State University and Franklin County Public Health, and Ohio State University and Ohio Department of Health that governs the COVID data. And then the school data, those are also governed by those agreements. So that lays out some of that. In addition, this project is in service of public health and school districts. There is no research that's being conducted in any of this, where none of us are interested in publishing any of this. This is completely meant for service. So as soon as this project is over and it's not going to be used anymore, all the data that was provided would be deleted, removed securely. All of our infrastructure is stored on the Ohio Supercomputing Center, which is a consortium of computer cyber infrastructure that drives a lot of different platforms and other things in the state of Ohio. And so that has the highest level of security, and we follow their guidelines as well for data deleting data and making sure that it's securely deleted, and that only the servers that have the highest level of security are able to retain the data on student absences and nurse visits and other things.
So thank you for that, because that question really gets at the fact that we need to, as a board, I would like to understand what that data retention is for this particular data. And if that includes the board taking action to add this data to our retention schedule. Just because we're dealing again with the national pandemic, the data also, it sounds like it's open to the public. So that's why I have this heightened concern around how we're keeping and collecting this data. Because it's open to the public and multiple institutions, who's centralizing and controlling the data? Who's distributing the data?
Right. So I will clarify that in the public-facing dashboard, it is aggregated data that is shown. Right. And so the line level data, individual level data is held in the highest level of security, and it is controlled access by myself and other multiple layers of security. So that is in a secure manner. Anything that is publicly available is always aggregated and always follows ODH reporting guidelines for small numbers. And we don't even show the census tract data in a public. It's always district level, or in the case of CCS, it'll be region level data. The data use agreement specifies that Ohio State University is in charge of preserving that data and keeping it secure and controlling the access to it. And like Ann mentioned earlier, the secure dashboard is where we provide anybody with of that district says, please provide my board member or my staff access to the secure dashboard. There's another level of security built in because accessing the secure dashboard again means you only get aggregated data, never access to the row level data. The only individuals who have access to the row level data are the IT staff at CCS who are uploading that data through a secure file transfer protocol. And they're the only ones who can access those folders. And again, they can only access specific folders that I grant access to. So ultimately, as the PI for this project, the responsibility is on me to make sure that I follow the state guidelines, the institutional guidelines at OSU, the federal guidelines, and abide by the data use agreement that we have signed with Columbus City School Districts. So that's I hope that's helpful.
It's very helpful. So are you the only PI on this project?
I am the primary PI, yes.
You're the primary PI. How many other PIs are on the project?
Primary PI, meaning I'm the PI on the contract that we have with ESC of Central Ohio, under which Columbus City Schools is covered as one of the districts that we're providing CATs for.
So what I'm understanding is that you're the primary PI. There's several other PIs that have been listed on this project. Some of those PIs are connected with institutions.
No, there are no other PIs on this project.
Okay, so you are the primary PI.
Yes, I'm the only primary PI. The only institutions who have access to the data. So for other districts, for example, they have ITCs like Meta Solutions who work with them. And so they have access to their EMIS systems and they will, they're transferring the data on behalf of them. Staff absence data that ESC offers, they pull that data and there's one person there who has access to just the staff data. But everything that the data that comes from CCS is only accessible to myself, programmers who are working underneath me and I'm directly supervising, and then the CCS staff who are uploading that data.
Okay, so are there any co-PIs, secondary PIs?
Nope.
Okay. So in this particular process, we are uploading the data. You and your team are working to ensure that that data is entered in the appropriate fashion and that it is visually displayed in ways that are appropriate. So I'm understanding a centralized process by which your team will then distribute the data back to our district and back to health officials who will benefit from having that data, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So sorry that I'm trying to get there. So I think it's important that I think it's important that we understand this process because one, I think when we're monitoring our COVID-19, we're going to get a lot of questions from the community about, is this symptom monitoring or is this absence monitoring? So it's very important for us to understand this process. So when we get those questions, we can formulate questions then back to the administration to help us understand what is actually being monitored, who has access to that data, and then how that data is distributed. The last question then that I have is again related to kind of this privacy. And I understand, and I think it's great that you all are not providing that census tract data because we know that researchers can pinpoint where those locations are and do additional data. So thank you. I mean, additional research. So thank you for not providing that census tract data publicly. But are there recommendations that you would have for us as a district in terms of notifying our parents that this project is going on? Are there forms that they should be signing? I think about the IRB process in which you're normally given a piece of paper where you consent to be a part of the project. Are you recommending that our families, that our staff consent to be a part of this, or has the district kind of given this blanket consent?
I can speak on behalf of the IRB at OSU that they reviewed the project, they reviewed the data elements and what was being done with it, and they deemed this project they deemed this project IRB exempt because it's a service, it's like a quality improvement project in that sense. So under that, they provided us a letter saying that it's exempt. I think I will defer the question about who has whether consent is needed from Columbus City School parents. I believe these are absence data that are reported to the state. They're reported, aggregated up and reported. And the data elements that were provided to us, we're assuming that Columbus City School District has the authority to provide us those data. They would be considered, some of it would be considered personal information, but they are still being housed in servers following protocols that are meant for PII, personal identifiable information. So those procedures are being followed. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And I appreciate that you sharing the exemption. And because it has exemption, then we're not required to give that consent to participate, but I would strongly encourage us to inform parents and in a way that the community can understand exactly what we're monitoring, what data we're collecting, and how long that data will be collected. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. I have a quick question. Does the agreement, or are we only allowed to use this data for the purpose of health? Seems like we're getting a lot of great data that we might be able to use in other aspects of our strategic planning. Is it only tied to health that we can use it?
For us, we can only use it for predetermined purposes that we applied for. But we have also done additional analyses when other school districts have asked us specific questions with the available information. And then just looking forward, because I'm prevention oriented, of course, it's my dream to continue this work with all school districts. So going beyond infectious diseases and talking about social emotional indicators and giving you visualizations of what's happening. So I'm already thinking about those things, but right now we don't have the permission to do that. But my goal is to turn CATS into something that is more holistic and get away from the pandemic when we can get it under control.
Right. And one of the things that we're, some of the fields that we're capturing are things like whether students are on a free meal plan, whether they have an IEP or not, their race and ethnicity. And so what that allows us to do is to provide aggregated, data that can be where you can look for whether there are trends in quarantine patterns by certain for certain vulnerable populations, by and then alert you to those, and so that there can be action on those. So we're coming at this from very much a public health and a holistic perspective and a systems level perspective. And right now the focus is really on COVID-19, but it doesn't mean that the infrastructure that's been built up cannot be extended to other issues, if that is something the board would like to think about afterwards.
Thank you for that. Are there additional questions from the board? Looks like none. I will turn it back to you, Superintendent.
Okay, so thank you so much for this presentation, and we will follow up board with our next steps when we will start with the implementation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now I would like to welcome our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Ms. Elise Clark, to provide a brief update on the district's response to the findings in the curriculum management audit that was conducted by Phi Delta Kappa last school year. The findings and recommendations provided by PDK continue to be important factors in the ongoing work of our academic services team as we work to implement solutions and strategies to address the identified issues. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Clark to start the presentation.
I do apologize. I'm having connectivity issues. I'm not sure if my stream is coming in clearly. I do apologize. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I apologize. I'm going to share this evening. I do apologize. I don't normally have these issues, but tonight I am. Okay. Good evening to President Reyes, to President Adair, excuse me, Vice President Reyes, to Dr. Dixon and Mr. Bohoric. Tonight, I'm going to share with you how we are responding in academic services to the findings of the PDK curriculum management audit, where we are and where we're going next. As you recall, last December in 2019, Columbus City Schools commissioned Phi Delta Kappa International to conduct an audit of our curriculum management systems that the district currently had in place. As a result of the audit, we identified areas of strength and areas of need. In addition, we found that the audit also contained recommendations that are well aligned with our work on the Portrait of a Graduate and the strategic plan. We have continued to work with PDK to receive training and preparation in the way of level 1 curriculum management audit training, which we participated in this summer and fall. Curriculum management planning, which our cross-departmental teams participated in this past December. We will continue our work with them as we participate in training for program selection, implementation, and evaluation training, as well as curriculum writing for central office, as well as teaching staff across the district. There were 7 recommendations as the result of it. The progress I'm going to share with you tonight are in response to the recommendations that speak specifically to academic services in the way of curriculum design and development, and then curriculum delivery. When we look at recommendations 2 and 5, the focus was to make sure that we could increase the alignment of the written, taught, and assessed curriculum. We also realized the need to prioritize equity in every policy plan and aspect of teaching and learning. We have created curriculum maps that are aligned and all include a year at a glance, the scope and sequence, as well as curriculum and instruction guidance for every course. Over the summer, we have rewritten curriculum documents for 73 courses, grades K through 12. In elementary, we have rewritten reading and math frameworks. We have included our district curriculum coordinators as well as teacher teams throughout the district participating in this work. We have, in addition, created professional development videos for activation training as we move forward so that these documents can be used across the district. This work will continue as we rewrite curriculum for our remaining content areas, ensure all curriculum is in our learning management system, and then implement a continuous system for evaluation and feedback to ensure equity and quality. For recommendations 3 and 5, we focused on the writing of our multi-tiered Systems of Support, or MTSS guidebook. This is an administrative guide that is created across the departments and academic services. It speaks to the recommendation that we implement systems that ensure effective instructional practices and rigorous student work associated with high levels of student achievement. Contained in this guidebook is the core instructional framework, along with an assessment system. It includes systems for intervention for tiers 2 and 3 for reading, math, ESL, gifted, social and emotional learning, and pre-K. We have also included decision trees, focusing on students in pre-K through 12 literacy and math, least restrictive environment for our special education students, ESL, gifted, career and technical education, social emotional learning, with tiered strategies and intervention for both behavioral and academics. In addition, the guide includes a 5-year professional development plan. Each professional development plan is tiered and differentiated by job role. Tier 1 actions for professional development include what we expect all staff to be able to do, to know and do. Tier 2 focuses on needs that may arise as a result after teachers have had the training in Tier 1. It also allows teachers to specialize, and that would be an example of some of our special programs that would be included in Tier 2. And then individual support would be available in Tier 3. Professional development is identified specifically, plans for our elementary and secondary curriculum, special education, ESL, gifted, career and technical education, our VCAP program, higher educational partnerships, health services, school counseling, social and emotional support services, and professional learning and licensure. We have aligned our professional development with student achievement goals and created a 5-year plan. Year 1 will be an activation, focusing on what staff being able to use and be familiar with the curricular materials. Year 2 will involve analysis with the result of strong implementation. Year 3, we will use continued feedback and analysis to create a plan to refine use of the curriculum materials. Year 4, the expectation is full fidelity of our adopted materials, with year 5, realization aligned with our student achievement goals. In addition, due to our newest system with remote instruction, we saw a need, where we actually saw an opportunity to provide more digital products along with some of our new adoptive curriculum materials. We learned many lessons, and as a result, we are in the process of building an additional department in academic services focusing on learning technology. We realized there was a need to dedicate our talent and resources to this work. And at this time, we are in the process of hiring a director so that we may build this department to be able to support all of our staff, students, and parents as we move forward with a model of blended learning, so that staff can use technology to enhance learning experiences for our students and can provide continued support to our students and families. As we look forward, we will continue development of the curriculum management plan. This is, again, cross-departmental work, including our departments in academic services, transformation, accountability, and testing. This work will be completed, and this management plan is to be implemented during the 2021-22 school year. The management plan will include clear expectations of what we expect students to learn, how we will monitor and the delivery of instruction, and using curriculum that is aligned to expectations for student achievement and growth. We will continue to monitor the impact of instruction, and this will be included in the plan, and we will modify instructional plans and our curriculum based on feedback and evaluation. At this time, if there are any questions, I will take those.
Board Member Beckerly.
Thank you so much for this presentation. At first, I want to say I am thrilled about the learning technology. You know, I guess adjustment based on the experience of COVID. I think that's just terrific. I think that's, you know, when we get really good at integrating technology into our instruction, that's when we can really make some serious progress in closing the equity gap. So the fact that you're treating that as a separate area to sort of explore and figure out and be intentional about, I think is really forward thinking, and that's terrific. The question I have, and it's probably more of a, I don't know that you can answer it right now, but what I'm thinking about is that while we desperately needed, and this is a wonderful thing to have the curriculum spelled out and with clarity, and I love MTSS, I think that's exactly the right way to approach it. I'm wondering with, I guess I'm fearful that, or somehow I want to make sure that the how is still going to be informed by, you know, inquiry-based instruction and project-based learning and interdisciplinary stuff, like, you know, and that might not really be appropriate to this discussion. Maybe that's another topic for another day, but I just want to, I want to put a pin in it, maybe, that we make sure that we're using, you know, state-of-the-art practices too, because I think one of the things that struck me the most from the PDK audit was there was too much sage on the stage type classrooms. So I just, you know, that's the one thing I want to make sure. And I think that that's probably a separate issue entirely, or a separate question or discussion from having this curriculum in place. And it seems like it's wonderful work. But so those are just two things, really, observations. But so excited about the deep dive on the technology front.
Well, thank you. And I can tell you that when we look at the alignment of the work with the strategic plan, that fits right with your concern. So part of the strategic plan, the focus is that deeper learning. So again, we're going to be very intentional when we provide those instructional resources and guidance, that we actually are looking at our curriculum to make sure teachers can make those decisions and will be able to go deeper in the learning. So I think it's very valid. Thank you.
Because it's meshing both. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Reyes.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. My question, so we talk a lot about the teachers. How do we incorporate, or is this the point where we incorporate our support staff, such as our custodians, our bus drivers, some of our great staff that has stepped up and filled in gaps in needs that we had in the district with our children? As I've been talking to some of our staff, there is a need, but I really like that technology piece, because a lot of them were wondering about how to get more proficient with the tools that they've been given. So the non-teaching staff, but we bring them in as support staff to monitor or to assist with some of the other things that the district has. Will this include some professional development for them?
So as far as support staff that are non-teaching, at this point, I guess that was something we'd have to go back and look at. Now, our staff, like our intervention, our IAs and our library assistant, of course, they would be included. We also have specific roles and responsibilities. And I appreciate you saying that I just called out teachers, but those roles and responsibilities include the Board of Education, the superintendent, our chiefs, our central office, so all of those people. So I believe that would be something as far as the non-teaching staff for us to look at and see where that fits. So I'll take that definitely back to the team.
Wonderful. I just want to make sure as we have professional developments, even if we have the opportunity to record them now that we're, in this technology Zoom world, I know there's a lot of other staff that's interested in learning how to develop. I met a kindergarten teacher who was um, a PTA mom who ended up being one of our parent consultants, who then went to school. Now she's a kindergarten teacher. How great would it be that we would have been able to include her in some professional development that she would have already had once she started within our organization. And I know there's resources, but I think we are in a different world in this cyber world where we can have more people attend and or have the opportunity for that to be assigned to them if they're interested in that ability. So I would appreciate if some of those options are left open for some of our OPSI and other staff members. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. To Dr. Pierce.
So thank you so much, Ms. Clark, for this presentation. I appreciate the work that you're doing on this project, as well as the grading policy that we've been working on. So thank you for this. My questions are going to take a deep dive into what we're providing for our teachers when it comes to professional development. So over the course of not just this week, but this week it's been really heightened with teachers sending emails about the curriculums that they're working on, the lesson plans that they have to write, how it's extremely demanding for them. And so when we come out of this hybrid learning, we're going to really have to hit the ground running with some personalized professional development for our teachers. There may be some teachers that understand how to use the technology really well. There may be some teachers that may need a little bit more hands-on training when it comes to the technology. So what I would like to know is, are you all going to continue to look at this a little deeper to see when and where we can begin to provide personalized professional development for our teachers? And that personalized professional development also have elements of differentiation for our teaching staff?
So I think that it's a very valid question. And one of the things that we've begun to talk about is, as we align our professional development with district goals, then we can actually focus in specifically on areas, because that's one thing. Sometimes I think we offer so many things for the teachers, then it's how do I choose what's most relevant to me? So when we look at our core instructional framework, one of the things we did was created a core instructional framework, a self-assessment that teachers can take individually. And then sometimes they also compile those results as a building. And the focus for that moving forward is for teachers to be able to identify, this is my self-assessment of where I am with regard to instructional expectations, and I would be able to choose. So definitely, I would be able to choose moving forward what areas I'm going to work on moving forward. And I think that's important. I think this year, to be quite honest, with everything that was rolled out, it was a tremendous lift. And we asked teachers to do that, to teach in an online environment. So one of the things, I will offer several things throughout the summer, but we do want to get focused specifically first and foremost on core instruction and allowing teachers to be able to identify for themselves which areas that they want to identify as areas of refinement, and then be able to develop a pathway. And speaking to your question, as well as Vice President Reyes, that on-demand PD as well, because sometimes there's only so much you can do on district PD days, but you need to be able to access them on your own as well. So definitely that's the thing, and we're going to have to just be more strategic about choosing what are our most critical areas so that we don't overwhelm teaching staff.
I appreciate that. So then my next question relates to our substitutes. We know that at this time, we're leaning in. We're bringing people into the classroom that can help us when we have those teacher absences. So are we going to include our substitutes in this professional development? Are we going to have a culture of collaboration that also invites our partners that are working at our LECs? And because I hope those elements stay with us in terms of our LECs and what we're doing with local nonprofits and businesses to advance student learning outside of the walls of our buildings.
So what we have done in a spirit of collaboration, actually, we've already worked with human resources. One of our first Canvas PD courses is actually a substitute course. And so it focuses on, it's actually something that one of the first things the team built. So that was very exciting. And it focuses specifically on being a substitute in CCS, giving them some of those things and those resources, them even understanding our MTSS. So that work is beginning. And one of our big projects with this new learning technology is to get Canvas up and rolling, because that's going to be the game changer, if you will, for us, and we will continue that type of collaboration. So that's where we are now, and we'll move forward with that.
Any regards, any work towards our partners? Again, our LECs, our partners that are collaborating with us currently and in the future, being included in this?
We haven't included a course for them yet. Of course, there's some work being done with them in terms of preparing them to help support us with the move we have towards getting these seniors across the stage, but that'll definitely be something that we'll bring back to the table. Absolutely.
Well, maybe that's something we can do with the academic committee again, to look at how we can get some opportunities for professional development for our partners. And then my last question relates to coaching. Again, as we have adapted and adjusted to COVID-19, the opportunities to coach and to mentor up and coming teachers that are interested in becoming principals, or early teachers that are seen where they need additional guidance from a more seasoned veteran in the field. What are we doing in regards to expand those coaching opportunities beyond the normal teacher evaluation from the principal or the administrator to the staff, but really coaching on a peer-to-peer basis, as well as a supervisor to colleague basis?
So what we have in terms of teachers, we have the part which is ongoing for teachers. Some of these things we're in conversation about, if you will. Some of the things Dr. Breeden has prioritized.
Well,
I apologize.
Okay.
Dr. Breeden.
Since you're having a little technical difficulty, I want to say, as you were talking, Dr. Pierce, you are singing from my songbook. I come from many years of experience in Fairfax County, where I oversaw the induction program. We worked with the New Teacher Center out in California. Teachers need 3 years of diverse type training to really get grounded, and also to be able to retain them. We're losing some of our very, very best people, as you well know from the research. So as we are getting the ability to get some additional, especially Title II dollars, we are in conversations right now with what is our coaching model is one of the questions that we need to wrestle with. And then what is our induction model? And before I go, I just have to say, Dr. Pierce, I saw you at the session on YouTube the other night during our strategic planning, and you had the book out. And this is one thing that I encourage everyone to do, is to use this as a guide for problem solving and for everything we do to personalize and customize the work that we do. So thank you, Dr. Pierce, for modeling what I've asked our staff to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Breeden, and I approve of that message. So if you need to use that video clip as a model, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Additional questions? Dr. Dixon?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Clark. And I just want to remind the board again and the public of the purpose of the curriculum audit. And so some of the questions that were asked tonight, they're very good questions, and I appreciate those questions being asked. but I want to remind us of what the purpose was of the audit, is to make sure that we had an aligned curriculum, right? That what we were teaching could be taught and tested, right? And we were finding that it was not. So we have to make sure that the curriculum that the board is approving, that is the curriculum that we are teaching, and then we're tested so the board can, and the public would know that we are seeing some return on that investment for that curriculum that you're giving us permission to purchase. Professional development is a big part of that. But we know that we don't have the policies. Remember, and that's one of the things that I'm thankful that Dr. Pierce is going to be leading with that academic committee, is making sure that we have those policies in place so that the board, when they're asking why and why not, we can say that the board adopted policies, and I, as a superintendent, am making sure that those policies are implemented. I'm setting those guidelines, those administrative guidelines, to make sure that those things are being implemented. So just want to remind us of that. And as the PDK committee comes back and, updates the public on where we are, that we're getting into that alignment. You notice that triangulation, what's written is taught and is assessed. So we have to make sure that alignment is there. So those other questions to professional development are very important in the organization. We want to be an organization where we have a culture of learning, that everyone in the organization knows how they fit, where they fit, and get the training that they need. And that has been stated loud and clear by the board several times, to make sure that our outreach is just not with teachers, but with everyone who has a part of this organization, have an understanding of what's happening and what we want for our students. So I really appreciate that, and making sure that we have the alignment across the district for all of our staff members in the organization. So thank you, and thank you to Elise and the team. And I'm really excited too about what this academic committee is going to do, and those policy recommendations, so that we can understand what we need to do different to make sure that we meet our goals. So thank you. I want to end my report tonight with a quote as we celebrate Black History Month. I know President Adair, you talked about it in your opening this evening. So since 1976, every US president has designated the month of February to celebrate achievements of African Americans for their role in US history. The late Jesse Owens, a world record-setting Olympic athlete, said, "We all have dreams. In order to make dreams come into reality, it takes an awful lot of determination, dedication, self-discipline, and effort." So that is an appropriate quote as we look at the accomplishments of yesterday across the district. After nearly 11 months away from the classroom, we brought our youngest learners and other student groups back into our school buildings for the first time. There were some anxious moments and a sleepless night for me on Sunday. I worried that the winter storm would cancel the first day of school after almost a year. The ice and snow was yet another roadblock or condition, like the pandemic, over which we had no control, except we were determined. As many folks were sleeping, our transportation team traveled our bus routes and gave the all clear at 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock on Monday morning, that we could safely transport our students to our school buildings. Less than 2 hours later, I was at Freebus Avenue bus compound with Lois Carson and other team members. So thank you, Lois. With bus drivers, sanitized buses, defrosted windows. These drivers began their morning pickup routes before daybreak. And remember, our bus drivers are our students' first teachers. So they had the opportunity to be greeted by all of our bus drivers. So like fleet service, the district operations teams work for hours on Sunday into Monday, clearing the driveways, sidewalks, and common areas outside our school buildings so it was free of snow and ice. Our teachers and staff welcome back students with open arms, just no hugging, the new normal. I visited several schools and could see the excitement and feel the enthusiasm. Our school buildings were filled with the sounds and actual noise we typically associate with the first day of school. I saw balloons, colorful decorations, and welcome back signs on doors and windows and outside fences. At Shady Lane, I had a chance to meet Daisy, a therapy dog in training who was there to greet students. I also saw a lot of masks on every little face in every school I visited. Some of our youngest learners took the mask as a way to show a little personality. Spider-Man was a popular mask choice no matter the school. So masks weren't the only new normal in our school buildings. Staff members were there to squirt hand sanitizers in each little hand as students entered the building. In the hallways and common areas, teachers and staff guided students to keep their distance. 6 feet of distance is now the new norm. Breakfast was served, and depending on the school, students ate their breakfast meal behind plastic at their desk or in the cafeteria, another new norm. Students sat 6 feet from their classmates and behind the plastic screens to learn. No matter the adjustments, our youngest learners need that in-person, face-to-face connection with their teachers. It allows them to build meaningful relationships that may not always be possible in a remote learning environment. On Monday, we showed the Columbus City Schools community we can safely have our students in their classrooms for in-person learning. Thanks to our district health services team and city health officials, we implemented all the health and safety protocols to hold in-person learning during a global pandemic. We did it. We showed our students what's possible with determination, dedication, self-discipline, and effort. So thank you again to those teachers, those principals, the area superintendents, food service staff, custodians, everyone who had a part in our opening day on Monday. Thank you, thank you. We also showed what's possible with determination when it comes to a vaccination plan for several thousands of our teachers and staff. As part of the Ohio Department of Health's phased rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine in our state, school teachers and staff are included in phase 1B of the plan. I'm happy to report that our district begins vaccination appointments tomorrow. In collaboration with Columbus Public Health, we were able to schedule appointments for more than 3,000 of our teachers and staff over the course of the next week. We expect to have additional appointments available for more teachers and staff to get their first dose of the vaccines next week. We gave priority to those employees who would be most directly working with students transitioning to blended learning. CCS staff will be receiving the Pfizer vaccine, which requires a second dose 21 days after the first. The vaccines will be administered in a drive-up clinic at the Celeste Center, excuse me. I cannot thank Columbus Health Commissioner Dr. Mashika Roberts and her team enough for working diligently to ensure the vaccine is available to CCS staff and teachers, and working alongside us to create an efficient plan that is set to begin tomorrow. As we announced late last week, this Friday, February 5th, will be an asynchronous remote learning day for all students to allow our teachers and staff more time to receive their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine this week. Finally, I want to highlight two pieces of legislation that are on the agenda tonight. First, you will hear the reading of a resolution to waive the $70 senior fee for the class of 2021. As you know, the Board of Education approved a similar resolution last year for the class of 2020. Waiving this fee will prevent an additional burden to seniors and their families who may already be enduring a stressful school year amidst the pandemic. I know your support of this recommendation would be very much appreciated. Please note that this waiver would not include other unrelated fees or fines that may have been incurred over the course of a student's academic career. Families who have already paid senior fees will receive additional information on how to obtain a refund. And board members, I put all that information in your packets last Friday. Second, you're being asked to consider legislation for the purchase of additional internet hotspot devices. We have already distributed nearly 4,000 of these mobile devices to our families, which allows their students to the internet connection to access our remote curriculum and online classroom resources. The need for these devices continues to grow. And this legislation tonight will allow for an additional 1,000 hotspots to be available for any CCS family that needs it. So this concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Scott, before you stop sharing, I think there was a video in there.
Yes, he's going to show a couple videos.
Perfect.
It's not the first day of school, but for some Columbus City School students, it sure felt like it.
Our staff, our supervisors have done such a great job getting ready. Our drivers are definitely excited and eager to get back.
Buses were rolling at 5:45 Monday morning to pick students up and head off to school for the first day in nearly a year.
I think everyone was just waiting for the day to begin. We didn't know when it was going to start, but it started, and that's where the excitement begins, because we know that we're ready to accept our kids, and that's a good feeling.
First day jitters are expected, but it wasn't just the students who were excited.
I couldn't sleep last night. I was so excited meeting these kids for the first time in person, even though it's going to look different. I am so incredibly excited to see how tall they've gotten, to see everything they've learned and see it in action.
Teachers throughout the district have spent the last month setting up their classrooms, making them safe for students to return. It's been a little bit of adjustment, but students were able to roll with the changes and get right into the swing of things.
I am so done with seeing my kids through the computer. I wish I could squeeze them, but we're one step closer.
The snow did not stop students from enjoying their first day in school for blended learning.
You could just see the smiles through their masks that they were excited.
And for those students who forgot their mask at home, teachers had extra to share.
Everybody realized what was at stake and how important it was to follow new protocols, and without a hesitation. Everybody did what was asked. They did all of their homework and prepared their kiddos for what it would be like. It could not have been a smoother start if I had scripted it myself.
Breakfast, lunch, walking in the hallway, and learning, everything was done through social distancing. But it was the opportunity to be reunited again with their friends, students, and teachers that made this day extra special.
Having the students in my classroom and knowing they're safe and knowing for sure that they're getting everything they need from me.
I always say that they're my family, so we're all a big family. That was definitely the best part, seeing all the students.
Here we go, and 3, 2, 1. I put my mask on, check my face. Kids, how you feeling? Feeling good and safe. Mask on, check my face. Kids, how you feeling? Feeling good and safe. School class, it's a good morning. Brush your shoulders off, let's get learning, yeah. favorite part. I put my mask on. Check my face. Kids I feel good and safe. Mask on. Check my face. Kids I feel good and safe. Woo, you guys did so good.
Oh, thank you, Scott, for showing those amazing videos. And those kids were so cute. And the little boy kept looking out because I was standing outside the door. I shouldn't have been, but that was awesome. Again, that was at Northtown Elementary, a great day. And thank you to the board members. Many of you were out visiting too. I ran into Dr. Pierce at Clinton Elementary. So thank you all for the entire team, rolled up their sleeves, entire administrative team. We were out there and everyone, we just saw smiling faces everywhere. So thank you for your support. Thank the community for this, being patient with us. And we are excited. And Thursday, we'll get cohort B. So excited about cohort B coming Thursday. And then next week, we have our 4th and 5th graders.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. That's what I told her. I said, this isn't just one first day. We got 4 first days in the next 2 weeks because every new cohort is a new experience and a new excitement. So I do want to thank the team, the administrative team, the teachers, the classified staff that really stepped up and helped us out. We couldn't have done this without the support of everyone, parents, families, everyone was really part of this success. So thank you. And I can't wait to see more recordings because we want, equal opportunity, right? For the first day for everyone and excitement, especially for that last cohort that's coming in next Thursday. All right. So we have questions, board member Beckerly and then Brown.
Just thank you to everyone again. Echoing all the thank yous that everyone said, I wanted to share that I stopped by at Lincoln Park at dismissal time and then got to chat a bit with the principal and some of the staff, and they were thrilled and happy to be seeing their students. And it reminded me so much of what I always knew to be the case, that, the kids make everyone, that's why we're here. And that was perfectly clear. And they were also really thrilled. They said it went well. And they also said the kids had a little bit of a calm about them, and I think we don't realize what we've been through as a society. This is so, it's really very interesting and exciting to have gotten to see and experience their energy. The one thing that I would love to figure out if there's some way to track, and this is just a thought, in my mind, one of the advantages or the reason why it was so important to get the kids in and to do hybrid learning and have in-person learning is because there's probably a segment of kids that are, not as engaged as they could be. I mean, we know there's some that aren't engaged at all. That's the easy one. But then there's that middle area where they're kind of signed in and maybe they're shut down, maybe they're not shut down. And it would be really great if we could somehow capture the increased engagement from that results from that personal contact. And there's probably some way to sort of triangulate time, with the device on it, because I think it'll spill over into the days those kids are even remote again, the days they're not in person. And, it will take a little bit of thought, and you'd probably have to triangulate it somehow in terms of getting teachers' observations as well. But I really think that's an important metric if we could capture it, because I think it'll really prove that this was exactly why this needed to happen. So that's my thought. But again, it was really exciting, and thank you. And I'm sure that there are stories where it didn't go exactly perfectly, but I think overwhelmingly it was a success.
Thank you, board member Beckerly. Board member Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank Delisa and everybody that was involved with making the first day a success. This did a couple of things for me. One is that it really affirmed for me my belief that students, our kids, are very, very resilient. And, despite 11 months and despite all the parental worries about everything, the kids just show us the right way to be. And secondly, as a member of school board now for more than 20 years, this was the best reminder I've had in quite some time of why I love doing this work, why I like to serve. And this made me smile, this made me laugh, this made me feel good, and makes me feel so happy to be part of this. So thank you to all.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Vice President Reyes.
I wanted to do the same thing. I want to make sure I say all our thank yous. I know there was a lot of logistics that went into ensuring that Monday came out well. We were praying not to have a snow day. Unfortunately, we had it today. I'm sure those kids were disappointed and some of our teachers were disappointed, but I don't know if a lot of people know how much work it takes to ensure that a first day of school occurs, from our teachers to our custodians to our cafeteria staff, our bus drivers. You said it in the video, our bus drivers are the first people they see, and our IAs. I mean, we can go down the line about all the people, and I wish I could mention every leader, every teacher personally that came in from every building. It's almost 50% of our students came back to the class. The largest, it will be coming, will be coming this week. About 50% of our students will be back. So very exciting. I hope one of the things I believe I expressed, Dr. Dixon, is as we move into the hybrid learning, that we make sure if there are issues or there are questions that we keep some sort of FAQ or communications so our parents know where to go to get that information. We had a couple of transportation questions, but those usually always happen during the first week of going back to school. Overall, we didn't get a lot of big issues. I was so happy to see there wasn't a lot of accidents and things like that usually come across when there is snow and ice. But clearing those paths was wonderful. But again, I just want to make sure that we keep up maybe some FAQs, some questions. I know there's a lot of additional questions from some of the parents from our older children, so our middle school and our high school, and there continues to be questions. We're working, as you know, as everyone knows here, we're working towards someday having everybody back, but it's going to be take some time. So thank you to all those people who a lot of folks don't know. We're working till 11, 12 o'clock at night, a week to 2 weeks prior to Monday. So just 1,000 thank yous.
And I want to interject thank you, Ramona, for sharing that and other comments. But yes, to the public, we've been working behind the scenes and since in the fall. And we stated that, we had the transportation hurdle. So we knew that, we worked that out. We were able to phase in this group of students. We're so excited to be able to phase them in. And yes, as I stated that, Sunday night, we were all up and worried, but we knew that we were bringing our youngest learners in and that we needed the weather to cooperate. And it did for the first day, but then last night it didn't. So again, we recognized that, and we did not want to bring our youngest learners out in this weather. But as we move forward and we bring in another cohort in on Thursday, and then our next group of learners in on next week, our fourth and fifth graders, we are assessing our transportation needs, and to see, okay, can we perhaps bring another small cohort in, and when will we be able to do that, and what does that communication plan look like? So I want the public to know that we are looking, we're making sure, it's more complicated than it looks. I know families are thinking, you have one group, it should be easy to bring the next group in. It's not as easy, but we are still working on it. We have not given up and just stated that this is all we're going to be able to do. We are working continuously close with our Columbus Public Health partners. We also have vaccines that are, the vaccinations that's going to start. And we're looking at how can we look at other transportation possibilities to bring in smaller cohorts in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. And as we bring that we'll bring that information to you at the next meeting. Hopefully we have some updates at the next meeting in February of what we can possibly do for the month of March.
And Dr. Dixon, do we know what our attendance rate was, and what are we doing for those that did not show up? How are we following up to make sure that they received their information?
Yes, so Monday we had about 96% of our staff attended. So thank you again. I mean, to see all the smiling faces of our staff members, they were waiting on our babies to arrive, and they were just saying, thank you, thank you. And I think once everyone got in the building and saw how hard their principals and the team worked to make sure they had the PPE and the protocols, I think that really came, make people just kind of calm, because every building, every leader just had everything just ready. So again, kudos to our principals and our leaders who made that happen. And then we had 83, almost 84% of our students for cohort A attended Monday. So we were celebrating that, to have 84% of the students in cohort A that came, but it shows that students were ready with their backpacks and their masks and their, it was just wonderful, and a great day to return. And I think the families saw that, my gosh, okay, it's okay. They were walking them to the door. And one little tidbit I would say, and it came from a principal at Shady Lane, Region 2 with Corey Grubbs. And he stated that he was waiting for his pre-K and kindergarten students to cry when the parents dropped them off, and they ran to their teachers. He said he'd never seen it happen that way. And he said, you guys, we're on to something. We may want to do something virtually for the kindergartners for the first 2 weeks before they come to school. So again, people are already looking at how we can advance this platform and look at school in a very transformational way, differently when we come back. Because he was so excited. He was expecting to wipe tears. And he said they knew their teachers, because they had they've been spending time seeing their teacher on the screen, and they were so glad to see their teachers in person. So again, kudos to our team members for making all of that possible. And we're expecting to see 80% or more on Thursday for cohort B. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Reyes. Dr. Pierce.
Superintendent Dixon, thank you so much for that presentation. I would like to take a moment. We've thanked our staff, we've thanked our teachers, our bus drivers. I would like to take a moment to thank our caregivers for trusting us to send us their babies, to send us their students, for trusting our layers of protection. Just as you were up that morning at 4 o'clock, I'm sure many of our caregivers did not sleep that night. And so I would like to take a moment to thank them for trusting us, for sending their students to school, trusting that our staff would look out for them and protect them as best as we can, noting that there are still opportunities for us to get even better with our layers of protection. So to our Columbus community and our caregivers, thank you so very much. I have several questions. First, you mentioned transportation. What are we doing to hire more drivers? When I visited the bus depot earlier before we started, it was an understanding that we have an opportunity to engage more drivers to deal with this transportation issue. So what are we doing strategically to reach out to drivers that may have left, may be coming up on the end of their leave, and may be considering, do I want to come back, take the vaccine? Do I not want to come back? What are we doing?
Thank you. So I just want to make sure our public knows too that our transportation capacity was not based on limited drivers. Our transportation capacity limits was due to us transporting our charter non-publics. So that's one piece. We have a recruitment strategy to get more drivers. We know that there is a national shortage of drivers, but we are currently not experiencing that shortage as it relates to the current routes that we have now. Our transportation team has always been recruiting. I think at one point prior to the pandemic, we had the highest numbers of drivers that we've seen in quite some time. I think it was last spring, but we have been recruiting, and hopefully we get drivers that from other places that want to come to our organization and drive. So our transportation team has been actively recruiting drivers, as well as, we're recruiting substitute teachers. So we want to have more of both of those staff members.
I thank you for that, because I've seen our recruitment piece for the substitutes. I recall that we did at one point stop hiring bus drivers. So I'm happy to know that we are hiring, that we're actively recruiting. I would love to see a piece of the recruitment piece for our transportation as well. That would be great.
Yeah, and then add to that, we do have some drivers that were sub drivers, and we talked to the team about it could be an opportunity to hire them permanently. So that is one of the strategies they're looking at as well.
That would be awesome. One of the things that we've gotten a number of emails about, you indicate that 83–84% range, I think, in terms of our student and staff attendance. Where do we stand in terms of our present need for substitutes? Are we anticipating that that number will be higher next week? Please share with the community how our buildings were able to adjust for those staff members that were out on our first day back.
Yeah, again, we've stated that we have a recruitment for substitutes. Our buildings were covered. We had some classes that we could not move forward. I think we had 4 pre-K classes and 2 MD classes that we could not cover because of substitutes. Many of our substitutes that we had prior were a little nervous about coming and subbing with us because they've not had the vaccine. And many of our subs felt more comfortable subbing in an online platform. So again, we are still recruiting, and we did not have as many out as we anticipated. We did have some coverage of additional administrators that we sent to support our buildings. So that was the plan of this week, to really send additional support to our buildings. We will monitor it on Friday to see how things go on Thursday, and again, monitor next week. So we're hoping that we won't have any of the additional vacancies other than what we had Monday. But again, we're monitoring that very closely. And if we see that we're going to have huge gaps, then we will have to revisit our plan to continue in a blended learning. We don't want to stay in a blended learning mode if we cannot have if we don't have the teacher support in the classroom. And we want our teachers there. But if we don't have the teacher support from substitutes because our teachers some of our teachers cannot cover the classes, then again, we will have to rethink that plan. But right now, the first day went well, and we're anticipating Thursday to go well too.
Thank you so much for that. My next questions relate to the student and family experience. So as we think about that first day, there were a couple of delays in transportation for some of our students. Can you please share with our community, our caregivers, what number they should call, what app they should be following if there is a transportation delay for any reason?
I don't have, Scott, I don't have that transportation numbers. One of the transportation, Maurice, are you on? Can you?
I'm on.
Thank you. And then we can put the number on, highlighted on the website, and we can put it on our social media channels as well. Okay, Maurice.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. To President Adair, to Board Member Pierce, Dr. Pierce, that number for transportation is 614-365-5074. Excuse me, 614-365-5074.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odom. I appreciate that and all that you've done to get our students to and from school safely. My next question is then that I can imagine we will have some families that decide to test the water. They've talked with their friends and they've seen how that first day went, or maybe they'll see how this first full week goes, and they decide to maybe send their child for a day. And then maybe the next week they send them for the 2 days. And then maybe they drop down to that 1 day. Can you explain to the community how we will be handling attendance and truancy during this time?
So again, we want our families to follow our current guidelines. If they believe their students are going to be absent, they need to make sure they call and report that absence to their buildings like they've always have. So we want to make sure that that is documented. If we see there, for some reason, there some chronic absences, then we will follow those protocols. Someone at the school will give them a call to check on the family to see if that's something happening. And many times we don't know what's happening before a child is considered chronic absence. So we want to make sure that parents call the school, let the schools know that something is happening, the reason the child is not attending, and then the school will take it from there.
Are we still considering, what is the threshold for chronic absence? What's that day mark? Is it 9 days? It used to be 9.
I don't have that information with me. Dr. Klein, there she is. And then we can also, let's make sure we put this information on our FAQs too. We can put this information on the website. Dr. Klein?
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of the school year. So basically, yes, you're looking at 9 to 10 days. The important part that we have to remember is that for in-person learning, it is a little bit different. If your child is scheduled for in-person learning and is not able to attend, it is an absence. Even if they participate remotely and do their work, the Ohio Department of Education was very specific in what they allowed us to consider as in-person attendance. So a student must actually be there in order to get in-person attendance. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon and Dr. Klein. Now we're going up the journey. We're going to deal with some high schoolers now. We're in February. It's February 2nd. Where do we stand with our graduation plans? How many have been signed, and what is our strategy to get the other plans signed?
Yeah, so that information was in remember I put that in your packet, so you guys have that information. Yes, you have that information.
I didn't want to give the number. I wanted you to.
Well, I don't have to get a number publicly. You guys are the ones that wanted the number. So we have that number. We have up to 1,000 students who have signed their planners. So parents, please, our team members are reaching out. Their families should please turn those planners in. We've had, as we stated to our families that know, our schools are reaching out to our families. So if for some reason our families don't know what's happening, our families need to contact the schools, because our schools are sharing that they're in contact with our families. They have reached out to the families. They've given families multiple ways to get that information back to them. So please contact your school principal, your school counselor, just if you're not getting this information that's been reported to us. So we have received information that families have been contacted, signed. Some of these, many of these planners have been signed. We've asked families to they can screenshot it and just send a picture of a screenshot to the schools, etc. So please, the school is the first line of communication. The school principal, the school guidance counselor or school counselor, send that information in email or call, and that is the first line of communication. And as we get those updated, we sent you that information in your board packets. And as we get more of those planners in, we will continue to update you in those Friday reports.
And I appreciate that, Dr. Dixon. So we're at about 76% of those being signed for roughly 1,900 out of our 2,500. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But my question is, how can we incentivize, or can we incentivize the process for our seniors to sign those, our seniors and their caregivers? Maybe you get a senior t-shirt when you sign it. Maybe, you get a special shout out on the radio. But can we do some additional things to incentivize that process for our families to get those signed?
Yes, thank you. We can do that. And our team, we know we have some teams of people who are working with our students, working with our families. Our buildings, principals and staff are really doing an amazing job. They are reaching out to our families and working hard to get these planners signed. So again, our team, Dr. Chapman and the area superintendents have been working with the principal coaches have been working with the principals and really working with our families to see what are some of the barriers, what are some things that we can do. Do we need to come to the home? Do we need to pick, we would come to the home, we would pick them up. We don't want our students to be in jeopardy if it's something that can't be signed or has not been signed. But again, we would continue to send out outreach to make sure that our seniors are supported. If we want to give some incentives, we can definitely work with our teams on that. But I want to really find out, why, what's the holdup? Why they're not being signed as a parent not there. I think that's some of it, because it's the senior plan now, but there may be some other critical documents that, that our parents will need to sign for our students. So, we're thinking about our academic team today was thinking about just in the future, looking at holding meetings with our family meetings with our students. If there's a way we can get them to the building and just kind of sit down and see what, what's going on, how can we plan together? Because it may be something else that we're not aware of, that we really want to reach out to our families and say that we're here to help.
Your team is singing my song now, Dr. Dixon. That made me smile from ear to ear, the family meetings.
Yep.
And in person.
Yes.
I appreciate it like that.
Mm-hmm.
My last question then relates to sports. I received several emails over the week that our huddle process, some families don't have access to it when they were promised access to it, that there's been some challenges with our live streaming. So who can our families connect to immediately when these challenges happen? What's our district strategy to ensure that we have huddle out as promised and that we have the live streaming out as promised? And then definitely, how are we gearing up for our spring sports?
Yeah. So I would have Mr. Odom, if you can speak to these, you and or Dr. Stanford, because you have been working closely with Dr. Clarino. So either one of you can take this question.
So Dr. Dixon, thank you. Board Member Pierce, Dr. Pierce, the huddle process is a process that's used to upload videos, as you know, and is utilized at each school has the opportunity if they choose to use huddle. The intent of huddle, though, the purpose of huddle is for film exchange from school to school. And so where schools have requested to use that, we do have huddle. Some coaches actually do a different format of changing. We're continuing to monitor that. Also, you had mentioned about the streaming of videos. We're working through that. Each school has been establishing processes to be able to stream. We had some situations at one of the particular schools that I'm aware of that we had some connectivity issues. As soon as we found out about that, we had our team, the principal, as well as our student activity team, reach out to our IT department, and they immediately went and looking to resolve that matter. So we'll continue to follow up on that. But as far as talking about uploading for the huddle, we're working with our team to work with our coaching staff and team members. If they should choose to want to use huddles, we will make sure that happens. But some school coaches use different formats opposed to huddle for its film exchange.
If I could just clarify, I think where the disconnect may come in is when we had that initial board meeting, when we talked about sports, huddle was given as an option for families to upload footage of their students. So if their students are being recruited, college coaches, other coaches would be able to see that footage. As a parent of athletes, I know that comes with a fee, but we said that that was an option for our families. So can we clarify for our families this week if that is in fact an option, if it's not, and what options are available for our students that have the potential to be recruited by colleges that have scholarships?
Yes, Dr. Pierce, we will have that, and we will bring that back to the board, and we will follow up with a message to our families of our athletes.
And then that last question was just how are we teeing up for spring sports? And if we could just include that information when we share the information about huddle, I think our families would greatly appreciate it, and our coaches.
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Those are all my questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pierce. I do want to ask a clarifying question on the substitute. When you mentioned that we didn't have coverage for pre-K and MD classes, and that's because those classes require different certifications for staffing, right?
Correct. Yes, and we needed, yes, specialized subs for those classes. Correct. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Back to Board Member Beckerly.
Oh, actually, kind of along those lines. I just wanted to confirm my understanding of what the attendance rate was for teachers. Could you just say that again, Dr. Ditson?
The attendance rates for teachers for Monday, and I have was 96%.
Okay, good. I just want
the attendance rate for our students for cohort A was 83%.
Great. And given the weather.
Yes, that was good.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
And it kind of confirmed too that our teachers were excited to come back.
Absolutely. And many of them expressed it, and that was
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions for you then, Dr. Dixon. Thank you for your report this evening.
Thank you.
All right, we will head over to our internal auditor. Hello, Internal Auditor Smith, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, President Adair. Dr. Dixon always raises a high bar for anyone to follow. I do not have any videos of cute children, unfortunately, so I will just start my report. Okay, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, and members of the board, the Audit and Accountability Committee met virtually January 28th. A majority of the meeting was spent on annual organizational matters. For purposes of this board report, I have broken the report into 4 buckets as follows. The first item are items that were reviewed, vetted, and voted to send forward to the board. And there was only one item in that category. The IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, professional standards, which are the standards that my office follows, requires the chief audit executive must confirm to the board at least annually the organizational independence of the internal audit activity. The IIA interprets organizational independence is effectively achieved when the chief audit executive reports functionally to the board, and examples of functional reporting to the board involve the following. So bear with me as I read this because it's kind of important. Approving the internal audit charter, approving the risk-based internal audit plan, approving the internal audit budget and resource plan, receiving communications from the chief audit executive on the internal audit's activity performance relative to its plan and other matters, approving decisions regarding the appointment and removal of the chief audit executive, approving the rumination of the chief audit executive, making appropriate inquiries of management and the chief audit executive to determine whether there are inappropriate scope or resource limitations. I confirm positively to all of the above that the board does fulfill those functions. So I am confirming the organizational independence of the internal audit activity. The next bucket of items are items that were reviewed, vetted, and approved by the committee, but require no board action. Only one item fell into that bucket, and that was the approval of the committee calendar of events. This is a document that helps keep everyone current on reports and presentations that will come to the committee, such as meetings with the external auditors, reports on areas of significant risk, such as IT, financial, and enterprise, or other such reports. The committee made changes to the contents and then approved the calendar. The third bucket are items that are reviewed, vetted, and no committee action is taken. And that area covered the update to the committee charter. A draft was presented that included suggested changes to expand enterprise risk management responsibilities of the committee, include committee members' expertise such as IT, and to align the leadership composition of the committee charter to the current makeup of the committees, where we currently have either a chair and a co-chair or two co-chairs. When the most recent committee charter was updated, it did not include such a structure, so that has to be corrected. All of the changes that the committee members discuss will be presented at a future meeting, and then the committee is kind of going back and forth to determine if they want to, at that point in time, approve the charter and just hold it until the board moves forward on your charter work, or just wait and then approve it at that point in time. So that's still left for the committee to decide, but there was no action as far as a vote taken, excuse me, on that particular document. The fourth and final bucket are items that are presented for review and discussion, but no committee action is required. The OIA current period dashboard falls into this category. And this report is intended to capture the current status of all engagements included in the approved work plan, alert the committee of any additions, deletions, and the reason for the additions and deletions. Now, I will test out my sharing ability by sharing my screen abilities, and will walk you through the dashboard. Okay. Okay, I'm going to assume that we can all see that. Great. Okay. I'm going to just get rid of the thumbnail view because it's distracting to me. Okay. So this is a report, an abbreviated report, what was presented to the committee at their January 28th meeting. So we'll just hop right into it. The executive summary is all of one page, and it's a bar graph that will show you in a very quick snapshot of the activity of all the different engagements that we have going on in the department and the status of those engagements. So just to give you a better idea, this is as of December 30th. And as you can see, we'll just kind of highlight, you see the bar graph showing that there are 3 projects that are delayed. If you wanted to get additional information on those particular projects, you would come down to the audit plan update. And you can see that the 3 items that have been delayed are all dealing with school audits. These audits were started prior to COVID, and because of obvious reasons, we have not been able to get back into the buildings. Right now, I do not want to remove the audits. If nothing else, I would like to at least draft some type of memo and get that information out to the principals so they will have the information to hopefully improve their processes. So right now, we're just showing those as delayed. But the bar graph, if you wanted to see the specific items that we are talking about, you would have to come to this report here. If you want to get a little bit more information on these items, there is one more report which will show you at what phase we are currently in. So for the school audits, we had completed the planning and scoping, and when COVID hit, we were actually in the field work doing work. So this report will show you exactly what phase each engagement is at. So the next report, if there were any additions or any deletions to the annual work plan, we would identify those right here. We would take those additions and deletions to the committee, have those vetted, and then report the additions and the deletions to the board. Right now, there are none. And when I say additions and deletions, I'm talking about to the approved plan that the board approved back in August. The next report is an overview of outstanding issues. At the conclusion of each audit, there are typically going to be recommendations for improvements, and then we will also receive corrective action plans as far as what management plans to do to improve the areas that we have identified. And we track that progress through our teammate, which you've heard me talk about, our automated auditing program. And we pull the information from teammates into this high-level report that just shows the total number. In our systems, we have down the specifics, and we have down the audit, and we have down the departments that these relate to. Right now, we're showing, as far as the treasurer's office and business and operations office, as of September the 20th, I'm sorry, September 2020, this was the status of the open issues. In total, we had 51 issues that were rated as high and 44 that were issues that were rated as medium. We started, as you can see, considerably higher. We were able to go through and close some of the issues, meaning we actually went out to the locations and performed follow-up procedures and determined that those issues had been adequately addressed. Management has contacted us and said there are additional 18 high items that are ready for our review and an additional 23 items that are ready for review, which brings us to our totals. And I know the totals might look, relatively high, but I am quite confident that based on the work and the progress that we had performed related to the Auditor of State and their open issues, we can get these issues down to single digits, working together with management. The only other thing I want to point out on this report is that this is just for the Treasurer's Office and Business and Operations. Because of everything academics and accountability has on their plate, we did not sit down with them to find out exactly, what is ready for us to review. So once they have time, we will get with them to find out what the status of their open issues are. So the next report that you see might be a little bit higher, but it's nothing to panic about. It's just that we finally have had a chance to get with those departments to address any open issues that they have and when they will be ready for our review. And I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Auditor Smith. Are there any questions from the board? And I can't see all of you, so just shout out.
I can quit sharing my screen, I think. Okay, there we go.
It looks like there might be no questions, but Board Member Beckerly, as co-chair, since Board Member Ragland is not here, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, we're excited to, nothing substantive. I'm, as always, appreciative to Carolyn and her team, who always do a wonderful job. And present their work and their analysis in ways that make it clear what's being targeted and why. The other thing I wanted to mention is that as we started a new year, we're grateful to our community members who serve on the committee. We've got Greg Jordan from Nationwide Insurance, he's their chief auditor. We have Eli Vajan from, okay, Carolyn, where is he from again?
He's from Wendy's.
Wendy's, okay. I thought okay, right. And then we've got Tim Grant, who's retired auditor and accountant. Retired accountant. Yeah. So their help is invaluable, and they show up and they are prepared and they think through all these issues and help us think through them all, and we're really grateful to them for that. And Carolyn's staff as well. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. Thank you, Internal Auditor Smith. All right, we'll move on to the Treasurer's report. Hi, Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening.
Do you have a report for us?
I do not, Madam President. I do not have a report for you this evening. A simple announcement. FAC meets on the 10th. That's a week from tomorrow. 4 p.m. We're doing it virtual and Zoom. And that's it from the Treasurer's Office this week.
Thank you. Board Member Cole, anything to add? Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into item 8, which is board matters. Item 8.1, we have the first reading of resolution to waive graduation fees for the class of 2021. I'm going to ask Board Member Cole to address this.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the second opportunity that we've had to be privileged enough to make sure that we provided a space of comfort and a space of stability for our students who are graduating seniors this year by resoluting that this fee would be removed. Whereas policy 6152 students fines, fees, and charges permits charging students fees for graduation. And whereas the district currently charges students a graduation fee, also known as senior dues. And whereas these uncertain times for students and their families, and whereas the Columbus Board of Education wishes to provide the social-emotional health of its students by waiving expenses related to graduation. And whereas the care for social-emotional health of students is a valid public purpose, now therefore be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education hereby waives the $70 graduation fee for the class of 2021, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education directs the superintendent and treasurer to provide any necessary refunds for students and families who have already paid such fees. I ask for this to be a motion.
Actually, we're going to close first reading.
Forgive me.
So we can waive, we can waive second reading, but let's first address the first reading. Are there any questions or comments about the first reading? Okay, Vice President Reyes.
Can I make a motion to waive the second reading and move to passage?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can we call the roll?
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown, we have a visual thumbs up. We'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Can you please clarify, are we making the vote on waiving the second read and to approve, or is this just for waiving the second reading?
it's a combination. Board Member Reyes made a motion to waive the second reading of this change and to move for its adoption.
Excellent. I just wanted to clarify. Yes.
Mr. Ragland. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. It's been a long evening. Vice President Reyes
Yes.
and President Adair.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you so much. All right, we will move down into our consent agenda. This evening, our consent agenda consists of item 10.1 to 22.1. Would anyone like to remove any items from our consent agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion about any items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you so much. We did give out some diplomas, so congratulations to those 22 plus adults on earning your diploma. Never too late. Congratulations. We are now into item 24.1, board announcements. Any announcements from our colleagues this evening? Board Member Beckerly.
Okay, I'm going to ask my lovely assistant Scott to pull up my slides. The first thing I have to share is actually a republishing of a story that was handled beautifully by our communication team back in November. And it came to my attention a few weeks ago because there was an update actually. So if you go back to November 3rd, the beginning part of this story is shared in our on our website. Allow me to introduce you to some incredible students and their teacher. This is a rise up story that is really wonderful on multiple levels. We have students from Lyndon McKinley STEM Academy, Marilyn Jimenez and Alicia Bruner, and their teacher, Kathy McQuaid. And if you could go to the next slide, Scott, that would be great. And these students and their teacher wrote and had published on Amazon a book called Green Roof Geese. And I think what happened is when our communications team put together the story in November, the book itself wasn't available because you had to purchase it online. And whatever their agreement was, we now have access to the book electronically, the CCS community. It's still available on Amazon though, so please, please, please don't hesitate to purchase copies, either donate them to our schools or give them out. I've purchased one for my grandson and a couple for the grandchildren to come, fingers crossed. But as you can see, this featured here is an image of the entrance to Lyndon McKinley. And the story is based on a true story. And the true story is that in the fall of 2019, before we knew COVID was ahead of us, Ms. McQuate had planted bulbs to honor the seniors. They were black and maroon violets, not violets, tulips, which are the school colors. And they have a green space up there in a garden, and it's really beautiful. And she was describing, when I spoke with her, all the ways they're trying to beautify this space and make it a place where people congregate, or a quiet place to sit and read, or just spend some time on this roof. And so as the pandemic began and no one was in the building, Ms. McQuaid became very concerned about her bulbs. And so she started to encourage, shall we say, Principal Bland to go up and see how they were doing and see if they needed to be watered and what was going on the roof. So much to Principal Bland's surprise, he discovers these geese on the roof, a goose and a gander, that are have taken up residence and are in the process of hatching eggs. So he, I think at first, was disturbed about this and wanted to get the geese off the roof, but I have a feeling some staff people had different ideas and included providing food to the geese and a little toy pool, like just a plastic pool, because they knew geese needed water and there was no water on the roof. And so concurrent with that, in Miss McQuaid's English class, she was sharing this story, and the students, I guess, are charged with writing a book. And so these two students who have been friends, Marilyn and Alacia, were so intrigued by the story, they said they wanted to write a story about this, these geese on the roof. All right, Scott, could you go to the next page? And what what developed was this incredibly beautiful story. And this is the artwork, and it's just a sampling of it, and it's stunning. It's just gorgeous. And so what Mrs. McQuaid, or Ms. McQuaid, described to me is that these two students ran with this idea, and they got entirely enthralled. And so now here's where some of the COVID stuff comes in and the rising up comes in. And they were using the Zoom technology to meet daily for several hours at a time to craft the story and edit the story and work on the, the angles and the substance and the themes and all of that. And they were able to engage other teachers within the building. And even at one point, they engaged a fellow colleague of Ms. McCate's, Jamie Ryan, who teaches at Fort Hayes. So they were actually bringing in consultants to help them with their manuscript, which is all what the real process of writing a book is like. And they dedicated an incredible amount of time to this and energy and thought, and they came up with this most beautiful book. And the story is written, and this is where it just gets so moving, from the perspective of the tulip. And the tulip thought he was going to be all alone on this roof. COVID had saved him from, meddlesome children and our students, and lo and behold, these geese are here, and he's all aggravated because his peace is ruined. And then, as you can predict, he kind of became partial to the goslings, and then when they were all gone, he was sad. But there were layers of, self-awareness and development, like lots of really rich things happening in the story. And it was happening on multiple levels. It was interesting to the adult and the child. And that's when you have a really good story that plays with everyone. And then the other thing that I thought was brilliant is that they worked COVID into the story and the pandemic into the story, but it was not the story itself. So they really never, ever mentioned the pandemic, but they have a picture of Principal Bland looking through the window when he discovers the geese. And there's some other things that sort of hint at it. All right, Scott, can you go to the next story, the next page? I know I'm taking a long time, but this is really a beautiful story. Okay, and so then what's really cool, and if you've ever done read alouds with kids in school, you know that there's nothing better than a story that captures their fantasy, and then they find out it's true, and then they want to know everything about the real story. So they added these pictures at the end of the book to show the real story, the real people. There's the pool that somebody provided the geese. And the picture of the main character, the narrator, because there's the beautiful tulip. So this was just exciting on so many fronts, and I just needed to share it in that much detail and ask you to abide or to put up with me. But the art was stunning. And there's a spoiler alert in the end, the geese go away and the tulip is sad. Sorry, I had to share. I'm just making sure I remember. Oh, and stay tuned. Mary Ellen at this point is working on translating the book into Spanish. The other thing that they provided at the end of the book was a list of facts about geese, which Mrs. McQuaid told me they were adamant. They did their research to understand about the geese and what they could expect about their mating patterns and all of this. And actually, for Principal Bland, I hate to tell you, but one of the things they discovered is that geese often come back to the same place the next year. So that was just a really wonderful story. I suspect these two friends, and with or without their teacher, maybe some combination, will have a lot of projects in their future. And I genuinely hope that they will remember to come back and share them with us. All right, Scott, if you can go to the next one. Now, this is a rise up story of a completely different sort, but incredibly important. This is Ida Jones, our library assistant at Columbus Iota. She's also the vice president of CSEA and the president of Local 518. And these are the stories that we don't share enough. But Ida rose up during COVID, and she made sure that every single instructional assistant or peak aide who was being reassigned as a part of our hybrid process got a personal call in order to make sure that they understood what was happening and there was no confusion. And that's an example of, what I know is happening across the district every day and we don't celebrate enough. People stepping into the breach and, double checking, over communicating. We can never over communicate. And if that's anything we've learned during this time of COVID, with our information changing all the time and our messages changing so frequently, that we are indebted to Ida and those like her who say, we better make sure everybody really gets this message clear, and I'm going to make sure it happens. So I want to thank Ida for rising up as well. And that's it for this evening, folks.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. You always share such inspirational stories going all over our district.
Oh, you know what? Can I say one more thing, though? A plug-in. If you go to Amazon and plug in the title, it looks like Eric's already done it from the chat. We can purchase this book, and I think it, sending it to elementary schools throughout the district, because it really has a local thing. So kids could even go on field trips and go by, I'm sure Linda McKinley doesn't want this, but there's just, neighborhoods, LECs in the Linden area. There's all different angles for this that I think can really make it meaningful. When I say it was stunning, both in terms of its story, its language, and its art, I'm not understating it at all. It was really, really exciting. And that those students' lives, having gone through that process, they're off on a different trajectory. So it's really wonderful.
Thank you. Other announcements, board members? Okay, so Dr. Pierce, then Board Member Brown.
I can defer. Board Member Brown, you can go.
I'm happy either way. As we were approaching Black History this month, and obviously I've seen a lot of MLK events and Black History Month events over many years. I wanted to try to take a look at it a little bit differently than in the past. And for me, I wanted to see if I could find a perspective from my tradition, the Jewish tradition, that's related and involved with Black History Month. And I took a look and I found a couple of things that I wanted to share. The first is from an organization called Avodah, and it's about, and it's titled Beyond Black History Month, working toward collective liberation all year. And this really resonates with me. And I'm just going to read a couple of parts of this. Throughout Black History Month, we honor and celebrate the numerous contributions millions of Americans have made to our country. We also know that the recognition of Black excellence and discussions about race and racism must not be relegated to just 1 month. To achieve true racial justice, we must work toward collective liberation all year. We are proud to raise the voices and teaching of today's racial and social justice activists, including our Jewish leaders of color who are championing these issues. And then the second item I found is from a Black Jewish leader of the community. His name is Marquise Holly, and he is a musician. Actually, he calls himself a well, let me read his quote. Much in the same way that there isn't one way to do Jewish or to be Jewish. And obviously that's something that I can relate to, and that's his Jewish side. Black history isn't limited to a handful of names. It's the acknowledgement that the existence of self-determining Black people in the United States as is an act of defiance and is worthy of celebration. And there was much from him and other Jewish Blacks that I found that was just very interesting and different than things I had looked at in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. I actually just said that today to someone about, it's great we have Black History Month, we want to celebrate it, but it really is truly something we should celebrate all year long, and embed that in the way that, we move forward as organizations, and in this case, in our teachings and curriculum. Dr. Pierce?
I want to give an announcement for our seniors. I Know I Can is convening a number of virtual FAFSA workshops throughout the month of February. As an individual who had the great opportunity to go to college, your FAFSA is extremely important, and it can be complex to understand, navigate, and fill out. So please, all of our seniors, as you are preparing your college applications, as you are determining that next step that you will take, whether it is career, military, or college, please visit one of those upcoming I Know I Can FAFSA workshops. And again, they're happening virtually. The last announcement that I have then just relates to some of the violence that we are continuing to see in our community, some of the very real effects of the realities that we live under right now, the realities in which families are strained, where individuals may have less employment than they're used to. Kids are at home a lot more often. Parents are at home a lot more often. Kids are out in neighborhoods engaging in various activities just to keep themselves busy. And as a result of that, we are seeing violence in our community. And while that violence does hit certain neighborhoods harder than it is hitting others, I'm still very connected to those neighborhoods that are being hit hard by the violence that we are seeing. And so this announcement then goes out to our community. that please, if you are interacting with a young person, love on that young person, ask them how their school is going, ask them if they are logging on, if they are a senior, encourage them to make sure that they have completed their graduation plan. If you have some snow shoveling that needs to be done, or some bulbs that need to be planted here in the next couple of months. I'm not a gardener, but let's just assume there's some yard work that needs to be done. I know we had an 11-year-old that was out doing some yard work to help his family. Please, please, please help our students. Our students are resilient, persevering students. They are exceptional, and they need opportunities to stay engaged. And so if you have the opportunity to be love and light to a student, to one of our CCS families, please do that.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Vice President Reyes.
Thank you. So I was going to take a little point of privilege and just share that my daughter just got accepted to Ohio State University. So she'll be a freshman. She'll be a freshman next year. So very, very excited. Carrington Coates, congratulations. And she wants to be a prenatal doctor. So a doctor in the family. So just encouraging. I'm looking forward to also looking and seeing our students as they get accepted. I know every year we celebrate. We can go to the buildings and see our students as they get their announcements. I hope that we can figure out some way to celebrate them virtually this year. I know EA's always Eastmore's always had a big old wall, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. But I also wanted to mention that the Public Engagement Committee also has their meeting on February 10th, 3:30 to 5. So we'll figure out Treasurer Pahoric, if there's some people, they may have to leave us a little bit early to go to yours, because I know we have some duplication there. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's all the announcements. So we will go ahead and go to item 25, which is executive session. Vice President Reyes.
I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22 G3 of the Ohio Revised Code to confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, and per section 121.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of public employees.
There's a second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, provided we have a short break.
We will have a short break.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, we will have a short break. You can go into breakout. For the watching audience, we will be back to adjourn our meeting from the live session. For a second. You second, Dr. Pierce? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
You have to unmute.
Mr. Cole.
He's in the car.
Yes.
Thank you. That makes it unanimous. That motion carries.
Excellent. Well, thank you all, and we will see you. Have a great evening. Bye.
That was one of the best executive